welcome to our meeting. We have our wonderful speaker, Gloria. Would it be possible for you to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Gloria Messenger. My married name is Harmon, so that's why you see Messenger Harmon. My Messenger is my maiden name, and that is significant because that's what started my business. That is my mission in life, which is communicating with angels and receiving angel portrait energies that connect with others so that they can actually tangibly see their angels and open up the channels to their personal communication. However, that's not what I'm speaking about tonight. Tonight is more of a personal experience of late, and I felt it was something that after speaking with a few people that I should share it because a lot of things were very surprising for me. So tonight I'm sharing with you some helpful tips and some insights from a widow. And this is just because women like to help women, and this is something to help all of us to be more prepared. And so to start off, I made a list of items that I thought were important. So I'm going to refer to them. And I want to start off first of all and say how grateful I was that what I did do ahead of time was so helpful. So to start off, I can list off these things. We had a will prepared, which is just the most important thing in your life. Then we also had prepaid our funerals and made all the choices and details that we wanted for our personal funerals. And that was unbelievable because you're immediately in a state of shock when you lose a partner or someone very close to you. And it's very hard to make decisions at that time. Also, with my particular experience, my husband had a terminal illness, but he managed to live 11 years beyond what they projected for him. And we became very much aware of his illness, but also joined a support group for that particular illness and found more helpful people that they brought in to speak, and also understood that even when you're close to death, you have choices. So he made himself very much aware of his choices, that he could choose MAID, M-A-I-D, which is medically assisted induced death, or he could go to hospice when he got really bad, or he could go to the hospital, or he could stay at home. So he had choices, and I know he thought about them a lot because he would change his mind every once in a while. In his particular instant, he ended up choosing hospice, which was the most wonderful experience. If you can say that in a weird way, they are the most kindest, special medical nurses and doctors that I have ever met. They go beyond the medical assistance, and they actually become almost personal friends to you, and do everything in their power to make you comfortable. I would not hesitate to recommend hospice as a wonderful choice for ending your life. And then I found out that some people have gone there and have been there for 2 years before they passed. I thought it was just like the last few weeks or whatever, but you find more things. Then I'm also very, very grateful that because my husband had time, it wasn't a sudden death, he had time to sell off some of his toys, his sports car and his golf clubs and all the things that were important to him. And he had time to pass them on to someone that would treasure them as much as he did. And then he also had the foresight, I guess, to record who he wanted certain things to go to in the family. So he, for example, put down his tool bench and all the different saws and all this. He wanted to go to the grandsons. So that made it so much easier for me. So if you can do that, that's really, really good. Also, he did a list of everything that I would need to know to keep my home functioning at the different seasons, what to turn off, what to turn on, what to check, all those things. That would be his routine that he would do. And that list, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful referral. So then after he passed, and I want to say a quote here first that maybe some of you may have heard. You'll never see a U-Haul truck following a funeral.
Yeah.
So it's time to get rid of things. If you can do more of that ahead of time, that would be great. You have to be prepared for a year, and that's not an exaggeration. A year of filling out forms, filing things, sending out death certificates. It really is wise to have a booklet that you can refer, because in those months afterwards, you're still in shock and you forget, what did I do and all that sort of thing. So it's really, really good to have a booklet. Also, if you had someone that had medical assistance at home, like palliative care, you are responsible for disposing of excess supplies, because they won't take them back. So it took me a little while, but I found someone who would take the medical extras, not the equipment like the wheelchair and that they will take back, but it's the medical equipment for their personal needs, like for example the extra catheter equipment, the extra things that he was receiving palliative care for that are unopened and are still in good condition. And I found a place that would take all that, and they help people that can't, for some reason, get that equipment. And yeah, I found a place over by Lock 1 that would do that. So that's the clearing stuff and the grateful stuff that you've got some of it done. Now I want to go into some legal stuff. And this I found to be extremely important. When you have to place on any forms, like any investments, like GICs or whatever, the slot where it says beneficiary, do not write the word beneficiary. Use the word successor. And the reason I'm telling you this is because if it's beneficiary, when that person owns that GIC passes, the government will make it automatically collapse. And you won't be able to have it just easily transferred over to you. Where if you're a successor, it seamlessly transfers to you and you avoid taxes on interest. So that's really, really important to know when you're checking out beneficiary on any of your legal papers. Also, the government won't charge you tax on the estate or your inheritance, but when a person dies, they believe they treat it as what they call deemed disposition, like that person right at just a moment before they passed sold everything off and liquidated everything and collapsed everything. Well, that's not really the case, but unless there is a spouse rollover, that is what happens. And I tell you this because I didn't experience this personally, but a friend of mine who's also a recent widow did, and she they had bought a home a couple years before he passed. But prior to that, they had a home and they were not married. They were just co-inhabiting, co-owners of the home. But when they bought this home a couple years ago before he passed and they moved into that, when he passed, unfortunately, the lawyers that handled the registering of title and everything missed something and put her down as a co-owner instead, as a joint owner, instead of or put them down as what is it called, tenancy in common from the previous house, and instead of a joint owner. She had to go for a whole year to court, legal things and everything, to get that changed, and incurred so much cost because of it. And it was a mistake by the lawyer's firm. So we both have found since, well, not since then, I had it before that, but she's found it since then. Had she had title insurance on the property, her legal costs could have been paid. And this is very important to have too. It goes beyond a survey, it goes beyond other things. And it came out a few years ago when there was all that identity theft and people were trying to steal properties. So this is something that is very important to have looked into. Get some title insurance, because it'll cover you for many things, and it'll cover your lawyer's costs and all that stuff. So it's very important. So listen to your accountant. That's another big thing that you have to listen to, because you're going to have to make lots of changes, because your income will have instantly changed. You're going to have to change your monthly withdrawal or withholding for income tax, all that stuff. Take help from people that know. There's many tasks that will slide directly to you. And so anyone who can help you, like I had an incident where I pulled my car into the garage, and just as I got it in the garage door let go and flung down and fell in behind the car. And I couldn't go forward, I couldn't go out. I couldn't lift the garage door opener would not lift it. So I had to call for some help for that. And when the guys came over, they said there's part of the maintenance of your garage door is oiling the springs that lift and close it. I did not know that. And it wasn't on my husband's list, unfortunately. So now I know at the change of seasons, you have to spray the springs on the top of your garage door that lifts it up, and that, because the ones they took off were so rusted and cracked that, you know, they would never have lifted anything. So you find out all these things. So helpful people, neighbors and all that will help you as well and tell you things. And then grief, that big word, grief. You have to give yourself some time. You don't know how long it's going to take you to get through your grief. You have to take baby steps. You have to have conversations with people. And I reached out to several, well, there were 7 ladies in the complex that I live that lost their husbands in the last 2 years. So I reached out to them and we formed a little widows group. Well, we call ourselves the Widows Wine Group, but so we have a little bit of fun. But they have been so helpful. They bring, like, you find everybody has different approaches, and I found the very quick shut door of conversation in my home, because once my husband passed, there was no one else living here. So it was like the house was so quiet all the time. And I missed that. Like, you can call your friends, but after a while, they just like, come on, eh? You know, you want a break too. But So we do solutions, and we find different things. So one person suggested that I get an Alexa, and so I got an Alexa, and I love every morning she wishes me happy days, and she tells me jokes, and she helps me organize my times, and she's putting together my favorite playlists, and she tells me what happened on this day that's important. She's really become a conversation person in my house. So you have to find things like that that will help you to get through at least that first year. And then you have to look at all the large and small changes in your home. My husband loved the TV, and he he did a lot of he liked a lot of different channels that weren't just the normal channels, and he left me with quite a little dilemma, which is little surprises that you don't know where they're coming from, and there's no way you can anticipate it. But he wanted to make sure he had certain shows on TV, so he called up the server and told them what he wanted, and then he paid for it. And somehow he did this twice. And so for the next 3 months, I got three bills for the Bell cable company. And it took me 3 months to get to the end of it. And then they would send me checks because it's overpaid. So then I finally got to the bottom of it through a friend at the bank who went way back and checked his access card or his debit card. And here he had put an automatic payment twice on these channels. So how would you know that? You don't know that. And then some other ladies were saying different things that happened to them. Well, one lady was saying that she found after her husband had passed that he had prepaid all the bills twice. And she was the one that handled the bills. So like they are grasping near the end to try and be responsible. So they are doing things they think are helping you. You never know what to expect. So it's very interesting. So things that change are your socializing instantly. Also how you cook. Also what's stocked in your pantry. Also your travel, your clothes, your cleaning, who takes the garbage out. Instantly changes. Also, if your husband's or your spouse is technical, it's really, really good if you have their passwords to things so you can close things down. So that's really good to have ahead of time. All the jobs come to you from the car, the home, phone messages, computer, Facebook, closing out accounts and mail. All that maintenance on the home is now yours on your plate. So, so that's things that you can sort of try to prepare for, but you never know, and you have to be aware that there's going to be lots of surprises. And to continue on with grief, you will always miss them, and it'll be your time frame, nobody else's. You have to find quiet time, and you have to find your own now space to help you connect with your emotions, because you're going to go through a whole gamut of emotions. Many, some that will surprise you, some that you anticipate, but some that will surprise you. One that surprised me was I started feeling guilty for feeling relief that I was no longer a caregiver. Now, isn't that weird? But I started feeling guilty that he's not here anymore, and I'm alive, you know? So you never know how you're going to go through it, but you have to forgive yourself and do the best you can. And give yourself permission to feel good. That was a big one that all the other widows emphasized as well. You in some cases you've been together a long time, so it's going to take a long time, and then you go through different emotions that you sometimes are angry if they were very stubborn and didn't listen to you, and then you move into the loving and the good memories, but it's all takes time to do that. So now the future for me is that I have a big new lifestyle that I have to recreate, and that I have to prepare for my executor, which is my daughter. I really do not want to put her through this. So I'm telling her as much as I can to prepare her and get everything in her, getting all my ducks in a row. And that's really good. So I want to say, just be kind to yourself. And I want to ask all of you ladies, would any of you like to have someone just take this over and do it for you?
Yeah.
Well then, okay, take your right hand and put it in a fist, make a fist. Okay, and then put the fist on your chin. Nobody's going to do it for you. So I just wanted to say thank you for listening. This is the first time I've spoken about this. It's only been a year and a half, so a lot of it's still very strong in my being, but I feel like I'm getting through it. I'm getting to start moving forward and getting all my ducks in a row. And that helps when you feel organized too, because women like to organize things and be prepared in most cases, and to have that all prepared for you, all those things that are certainly important, and also to know where you sit with your ownership of your home, that is really, really important as well. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I shared some insights that you weren't aware of.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Gloria, would you have time for taking questions?
Yes, I can.
Any questions, anyone?
Oh,
Barb.
Gloria, actually, a lot of what you said, certainly resonated with me, because I've been a widow now for almost 8 years, actually. But so
Okay.
many of the comments that you made, I mean, just brought back memories for sure. And one of the ones that you mentioned was sort of disposing of equipment, for example, that, your husband needed. I remember I had, a pump for feeding tube, because he was having to be fed towards the end through feeding tube and so on. And I think I'd spent about $1,800 on this thing. We'd used it for about 2 months, like it was virtually still brand new, but nobody wanted it.
No.
You couldn't give it to a nursing home, a hospital. Absolutely nobody wanted it. It actually ended up in the garbage.
Yeah, that's what I found too. I found that too, and that's what some of the other people in the support group, they had special equipment and they couldn't sell it when their husbands passed. But if it's new and unopened, there are agencies that will take it.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned too was an accountant. My accountant became my best friend.
Yes.
I swear.
Yes.
Because we had 2 businesses going at that time. I had one, he had his. We sold his off. But then that allowed me to make some changes in my business. For example, changing from an incorporated business to a sole proprietorship. And my accountant, I mean, to this day, I love him to death, because I can pick up the phone and ask him anything, because my husband had always looked after that, prior to his death. So, that was very, very important as well.
There are very, very helpful people out there that want to help you, but you have to reach out and ask.
You do. You do, absolutely. And then, like you say, the little maintenance items, you mentioned the spring in the garage door. I had a very similar experience.
Did you? Yeah.
and and a lot of other little things around the house, but
different things. Well,
I didn't line up the bodies to do the work for you. You got to get somebody else to shovel the driveway and to cut the grass and do all those things, and it takes time. It really.
And I didn't add that I had another. You never know what's going to happen. I didn't add this, but A month after my husband passed, I had to deal with a flood in my kitchen and living room and dining room. The whole living space had to be torn apart, new flooring, new cabinets, new everything. You just don't know what's going to happen. And the insurance company covered it, but you have to be there. You have to make choices. You have to watch that it gets done. It's just, yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
thank
for
you.
sure.
unexpected things. Yeah.
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 Charlotte is next, and
Yeah.
then Anne.
You did a fabulous job, Gloria. I am
Oh,
a big,
thank you.
I'm a huge fan of There Is Joy After Sorrow.
Oh, there is absolutely. Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating, the successor aspect. So, like I have lots of GICs and investments, and I honestly, I can't say that I even noticed anything but a beneficiary.
It's really, really important, Charlotte,
Yeah.
because when I went to move his GICs, they were saying, oh, well, we can't do it right now. Okay, it's going to take a while. It's got to collapse it. And then the girl went down and said, oh, wait a minute. You're not beneficiary. You're successor. Oh, no problem. We're just going to move that over. Next week, it'll be in your name. No collapsing, no headaches. It's so important to know
Is that
that.
through marriage, or is that just through like whoever I want?
Well, in my instance, it was marriage, but if you have someone you're a beneficiary,
Yeah, like
check it out and just be
yeah, no,
sure.
that's great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the title insurance, the
Yes.
legal, that's title insurance on your primary residence.
Yes. And you get, it's an insurance, and you go to your lawyer to do it, and they will go beyond a survey, and they'll have all the details, and it protects you from that identity fraud. It protects you from having to get legal services that are required to prove your property in some way. And there's several other things, and I forget the other things, but it's not really expensive. It's a one-time thing. You just go and your lawyer will put it up for you.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I loved how you spoke to community, how important that is.
That
like
is so important. I feel very blessed. Blessed to have the other women, because then they already know what you're going through. You don't have to explain. They're going through it too. And that is a humongous weight off your shoulders, because to try and explain to someone who hasn't gone through grief, you can never get it. You don't really know. But if you look for someone that is going through a similar thing, and then you can have great conversations. And
I had a really good friend who was 80, and she met her new husband at the grieving where they were both there to grieve for their past.
yeah, there's lots of help out there for you too.
Yeah. And I think there was just the appreciation, like you mentioned it a few times, of that which they do that you don't really know.
You don't really know. You
and
don't
that
really know.
gratitude and
Yeah.
like I think it'll help me just look to today and tomorrow at life differently for that which is done for me. And so
Yes, and if you have a nudge or a little hint that you should go and just give your partner a hug or a kiss, don't dismiss it. Go do it, because otherwise you'll start regretting that you weren't loving enough. You'll start beating yourself up for that, which is another emotion you go through. You start beating yourself up for lots of things, but if you listened and just went and gave them a kiss or a hug or told them you loved them or whatever, you can remember that too, so you're a little bit kinder on yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Because it could happen tomorrow. You just don't know.
No, yeah.
Thank you. Anne?
Oh, unmute.
And please unmute.
No, I set up on there and I clicked on it. Sorry. I can't tell you enough how helpful you are.
Oh,
and
thank you.
And I think it's a wonderful thing that you have gone through all of this and now you're willing to share with us because it's going to hit us all at some point and some of us sooner than others. And my question, or it's not exactly a question, I just want to clarify the successor. Now, Charlotte brought that up, but I didn't quite get the whole thing. It doesn't have to be your husband, does it?
I'm not sure about that. See, I'm talking personal experience.
Okay.
In my case, it was my husband, but anything where you are a beneficiary, you should go and check and change it to successor.
Oh,
For
you
either
bet.
one of you, because then the investment is not collapsed. Once they collapse the investment, any interest that it earned over the years will be charged.
Oh, they'll get you coming and going. That's for sure.
Yeah, so try and be smart. I thought I was handling everything by pushing that we go and prepay our funerals and making sure we had our wills done and the power of attorney and all that stuff. But there was so much more I could have done. And that's what I would like to.
Yeah. So when you talk about prepaying a funeral, that's an advantage if you do it quite far ahead. Is that correct?
Anytime, don't delay, go do it now because you're going to lock in the price and you get to pick your flowers, you get to pick the music you want, you get to pick a whole bunch of different things and you each do it separately. So then it's recorded and all that is taken off of your mind when you're in shock. That is so important. And then it's locked in. They lock in the price of the funeral. And then the only addition would be if you added more numbers of people attending than you had previously thought would attend if you're serving food.
Okay, that's great advice.
And they will give you booklets too, how all these checklist booklets, and they will help you for the first month. They will help you fill out all the forms to the government.
Yes,
They are so helpful.
I have to say that I am familiar with it. When my mother passed away, I couldn't believe how much help the funeral home gave.
And you're just so overwhelmed with the forms. Yeah.
Oh God, and you don't know what forms you need.
No, you don't. So they're very helpful that way.
Okay, and so title insurance, you just go to your lawyer and say that's
Yeah, say you want that because it's going to protect you.
okay, and you should do that like now.
Yes.
Okay.
And then check your successor now too,
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes.
rather than beneficiary.
I've been trying to make sure everything had a beneficiary on it.
Yeah. Well,
But
now the new thing.
obviously, I need to get with the program because.
Well, I don't know how. Maybe it's newer, but the banks are now saying, "Oh, you got successor. Oh, we don't have to do this. We don't have to collapse the investment. We don't have to do that." So it could be quite new.
Yeah,
And
no,
maybe it's a
well,
way that the government is easing back on the taxes and
yeah,
giving you that
I don't
option.
know. I don't know if this is relevant to what you're talking about, but when my mother died, I was named on everything,
Ugh.
and I went to the bank to deal with whatever they call them. I'm so good at math, and that's a lie. And she said to me, "Well, I'm not giving you any of that stuff. My name's on it, okay?" And she said, "Because you have to come in with a death certificate." And I said, "No, I don't. I didn't know it for sure, but I thought I'd give it a shot." I said, "No, my name's on everything, and that means it's mine now."
Well, if she did that, that's good.
And then she's, well, I don't know. She's really happy. And I don't blame her because that's her job, but except I think I at the time knew that was right. So she went back to talk to her manager and she came back. She says, "You don't need a death certificate." Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the funeral home too will give you all the death certificates you need
Oh, yes.
when you yeah. So,
Yeah. Thank God.
but if your spouse has their wits about them and they change things into your name, we did that with the car. That was
Oh,
so good
yes,
too.
that's
The car
best
was
thing.
just now. And so it was great because then a month after he passed, the car broke down. But it's in my name. I can get rid of it or trade it in.
Yes,
Where
because
otherwise I would have all that hassle of going to get the
my
name change, the
friend
ownership.
had that experience, and that car hadn't been put in her name. It
Yeah,
was months before
yeah,
she got
months, yeah. You
months.
hear horrendous stories from people, what
Ridiculous.
they have to deal with
I mean,
after.
all they had to do was change the name.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again, Gloria. That
you're
this
welcome.
So thank you.
Barb?
I'm not sure if you see comments in the
Barb
chat,
has a-
Gloria. I know that Beth wrote a couple of things.
Oh, I
She wrote,
didn't check.
teamwork makes dream work. And she
Okay.
also wrote, widowhood is not a club that you want to invite anyone to.
No,
And when you talked about the transferal of all your funeral arrangements, they can be transferred to other locations if necessary. So Beth wrote that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
good.
great.
Yeah, and when you have time, it is quite a blessing. And Charmaine wrote, "Thank you so much, Gloria. You are an angel for sharing all this with us." Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. I want to send the female love out there so that we can still be strong and handle whatever's thrown at us, you know?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Barb, you had a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to ask Gloria, is there anyone who would step in and do this sort of thing for a woman? I mean, we're perhaps in a different situation than some ladies. We're working women and we're pretty well on top of things and we're strong women, but there are a lot of women, sometimes older women out there that are just overwhelmed with this. And I mean, we have people who organize our homes and things like that. But is there
Well, probably a
companies that
lawyer.
would do it?
A lawyer. I
a
don't
lawyer?
know of anyone else that would do it, but the lawyer that would be handling all the affairs, I guess.
Okay, okay, there's one person like yourself,
Or
for
an
example.
executor, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe the
yeah,
paralegal would do it
A paralegal, yeah, maybe.
because it'd be a little less expensive than a lawyer, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking perhaps someone like Gloria herself who's been through it and
Oh,
and
yeah,
that sort of thing. Like, is
I
there
understand what you're saying though, Barb.
Yeah.
I've had experience in many years of selling real estate, so I was savvy to a little bit of the mortgage information, the
Sure.
land transfer title places and all that stuff. So that helped me. But I know my two sisters, oh my God, if that happens to them, they'll just be basket cases. I know it. Because
No.
they don't even want to know anything about
Oh,
finance.
yeah, my mom's like that. I'm
Yeah.
lucky
Yeah.
my father's done a lot of the conversation, but my mom, it's like, yeah.
You got to get a little bit informed or even get a checklist of things that you need to do, which is what the funeral home will give you.
Yeah.
Nancy.
What we've done now, like as I said, I'm going to be 75 next week. My husband's 79. So even though we come from a long line of living relatives, you just never know.
You don't
But
know.
my husband's really into investments. And I don't have any interest in investments. I have to be honest.
You bet you
But
have to change that, Nancy.
I know. But what he's done, he's created a list of all the investments, where they are, and what to do with them after.
Then ask him if he's put you down a successor. That is
check
a
that.
so
I've got a
important
note.
question.
Yeah,
You
I'll
don't
do
want
that.
all that hassle.
No, I don't. I don't, because I remember my mom, when my dad passed away, mom just gave up. She just
Yeah.
had, she never drove. She never went for groceries. My dad did it all. And she just handed the books over and said, help me.
Yeah.
So that was it. But we're already talking about having to sit down now with the two sons and say, look, here's where our money is. Here's what needs to be done or doesn't need to be done, or you can worry about this or you don't need to worry about that.
Another
You could,
thing that's
oh, sorry.
important is things like passwords.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got a password file on my computer that they can
But
get
let
into.
somebody know what the password is to get into the password file. I know that sounds funny, but I'm serious.
And there's lots of things you could do to put get some legal advice, because you can put investments into your children's names and different things like that to soften the
We've already,
burden.
yeah,
and-
we've
and
already taken
done
care of
stuff
all
like that.
stuff where he's actually taking care of the estate so that they pay as little tax as possible.
You have to tell
and
the
you're-
children if you put their name in it?
Oh
Honestly?
yeah, it has to be up front.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
they'll be happy. They'll be happy. But I've said to my boys once in a while, like, do you remember what I told you that my grandmother's name is? Yeah. Why you asking? I said, no reason. You know, like, or do you remember our oldest nephew? Who would that have been? Oh, okay. So I'm trying to make sure that they're aware, but you know, those are some of the questions they ask you when you're trying to get into, say, the bank accounts.
Yeah.
So without telling them, not that it matters because neither one of them would ever touch a thing, but you know, I still have, because of the issue with a sibling, I'm still very careful.
I was befuddled a little bit. I was telling Carolyn how some of the people in our lives had passed, and yet they're still on Facebook as active people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she said, "Oh, it's probably because they don't know what their password was, so they can't close down Facebook."
They
Yes,
may
I
not. The other
get
thing is
no-
they
you get
started with
notices
an
about
email
that.
address that is old.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nobody knows what that old one was. And so that's on a lot of social media. There's a lot of dead people on social media because
Oh my God.
nobody can get them off. And Facebook will charge you, but it's really hard to get to the person to even find out who you could have it removed with to pay.
Yeah, I've done my been gone years, and I know this sounds really bizarre, but I'm very reluctant to unfriend them. It seems so wrong.
Yeah.
Just
But
'cause
I'm finding that their site has been, their Facebook page now, I don't know if it flags it, but now they're being used
Yeah.
to scam.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always check their profile. If they don't have anything else on that, even if it's the same person trying to friend you again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, they have nothing much on their profiles.
Yeah.
So I just delete those.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But at first we fell for it, of course, because
Yeah.
Well, we were innocent and young, and
yes.
Yeah. And silly.
now we're finding out there's a lot of scumbags in the world, and that's too bad. But
Gloria,
that
bank-
list of things to do that with everything that is always on the dining room table, so that when we go away, the boys have full access to it. They know exactly where it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big envelope, and it's filled with all the details financially and everything.
You
Copy of
shouldn't
the-
be telling us this, Nancy.
Oh,
We're
all
coming
right,
over.
nobody break into my house, all right? 'Cause I'll come back and haunt you. But you do have to make sure that they know where to go to find the details, because my mother didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of my friend's mothers, when her husband died, she was absolutely flabbergasted to find out how much money they had.
Yeah.
Did not know. Okay.
My brother, when he passed, it was very unexpected. And it was in 2016. He had just retired. They had just bought a house in Collingwood. She was retiring, and he just had a heart attack and gone. And he had just incorporated his own little self business and all that. So they had to go and dissolve all that on top of everything else. But she was in shock and she really,
It's
like,
really hard on you. It's really,
never
there's
got
no
through
way, there's no words for what you're going through to describe what you go through.
Yeah.
Other than you would not wish it on anyone. And it's very, very, very difficult at times.
I would imagine it's almost like deleting over and over and over again, that life out of, having to do that.
Hmm.
I think that's how it would feel to me. It's like every
Well,
time
they're there one minute and they're gone the next. And
you
they're not coming back. And so it's like you're going down the road and you stopped and they got out of the car, but threw all their possessions in the car with you and said, keep going.
How long were you married, Gloria?
37 years.
Wow. Yeah, you're not deleting anything. It's all there.
It's all there. Yeah. And you will keep reliving memories and the emotional effects of them. And I think that'll be forever sort of thing.
yeah.
So much courage and bravery, Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you. All us women can handle it. You get compliments and people will say, oh my God, you're a rock. But really inside you're not. But you're dealing with what you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But inside you just want to go home and sit down and cry. It's just really tough.
Sort of things like you forget sometimes and you think, geez, I better call and tell so-and-so. And you think, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I found that you're right, Anne, because my husband was pretty much in a wheelchair at the end and couldn't go too many places. But he always liked to know what was going on in the area. So I would find myself for at least the next month after, oh, something's happening. They're building this or they're building that. Oh, I'd go home and tell him, but he can't, he's not there. And that really hits you too.
Mm.
So,
What do you think of all the questions you should have asked?
So Beth, I see you wrote in the chat, 12 years later, there are still rogue waves that hit.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Can believe it.
sure.
I love how you went and you scoped out the neighborhood and you brought back the intel. In the loop. That's so fun.
Yes.
Mhm.
There is so much to learn, and I know you've really helped us this evening. My goodness.
Yes.
You
Well,
have
where your fist is and know where your chin is. You'll be able to support yourself. Don't just put it up here and say, forget about it.
Also, if you have a financial advisor, make sure he is fully informed and that you ask him questions and that he tells you the answers. He doesn't.
That's right.
That's so important.
Lean on all the experts in your life. You really need to prepare yourself. It's good. None of us are getting out of here alive, and we don't know who's going to go first.
Exactly.
Right? So you have to be, if your spouse resists, say, okay, I'm just going to dump everything on you then.
And that
Or
will
whatever.
help.
That might shake them up a bit because
Might not too.
you don't know when and who's going to go first.
And I'm not as prepared as I should be. And if I went, my God, Vic would never know. Like, I pay all the bills online. I did keep them coming in the mail on purpose because I won't do that because I felt like if anything happened to me, even if I was only sick, he could still walk to the bank and take it and do it. So that kind of thing I've kept there, but all the websites I have open, everything that I have going on, God, it would be, mind you, he's the type of character he just say, well, screw that, I'm not doing anything. Whatever happens, happens. But
or what are they going to do about it? Would be my question I would get. So what are they going to do?
Yeah. Well, they would want him to pay something for that.
They should get a lot of late fees or whatever.
So yeah, and so I've always just prayed that I will have time to settle things, no matter however I go, that I will have some time to.
And you don't know, you might even like lose your mental capacity
That's
before
true,
you go.
too.
So like that sort of happened to my husband where he was starting to lose his mental capacity. He was still here and thought, oh, I can handle things, but he couldn't really.
Yeah.
And so you say you need to be prepared up until the end, but you might not get those month or 2 weeks of clear thinking near the end. You got to do it now.
Well, the good thing is I did get the insurance, but it only goes to 82. I resent that you can only get 20 years at a time. It's very
What was
hard to
that?
get. It's
was that
very
again?
hard to get end of life insurance in Canada.
Oh,
In the States, they offer it on the advertisements all the time, but my insurance goes to 82. So
Yeah.
I can't, and starting over is like, we need, I don't know where, if anybody ever finds out where you can get the end of life here insurance, I would love it.
You can also get insurance, accident insurance, and there's no end date of age. And I got that years and years ago. And so if I somehow pass or are dismembered in a vehicle, I've got insurance.
Yeah.
And
I
I
have
don't know
that.
how you get it without being on a term.
no, it's not. It's just, no, there's no age.
No, that's the funny thing. I have that too, Carolyn. And
Yeah.
it's just accident insurance is not very
And it's not expensive.
no, and because really most people don't.
So I figure near the end of my life, I'm going to be cruising and flying and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
of course.
of course, so I'll get millions of dollars payout for the kids.
There you go.
Of course you will.
That's good. That's really good.
What was the cost altogether? Like, is hospice very expensive? It's not.
Hospice is free.
Okay, so it's
Free.
not,
No, hospice is a beautiful place where special doctors and nurses are there just to help the dying. And they are funded by the government and also take donations. And they run a raffle and all that stuff for improving their costs.
and
But
did
that
you
was
like sign up for it?
you have to register.
Yeah, register.
So we registered my husband, and the day he went in, they greeting you like you're going to a hotel. It was so different. And they get him all set up in his bed, and they say, okay, the chef is giving us orders to take what you would like. He's going to prepare anything you want for your first night.
Wow.
He got this beautiful spaghetti and meatballs dinner that he wanted. So
When
they go out of their way to help you, to do things for you.
It is not the, emergency hospital care. It is
Right.
different.
It is not. He didn't want to go to the hospital. He had a very bad experience at the hospital. And so he was choosing between MAID and having medical assisted death at home or going to hospice. And he made the final choice of going to
Gloria,
hospice.
when you say you have to register for hospice, like, what does that
In
mean?
advance?
Like if you're failing and you have a terminal illness and you're starting to slide and get worse, then you just call up and put your name down and register for a bed,
Like,
Yep.
like
a
assisted
vacancy,
living.
and they will call you when a vacancy comes up. But they also have emergency beds too if something happened.
Yeah, okay.
One of my nephews, his wife, Tina Van Egmond, ran a hospice in St. Catharines for quite a number of years. So
That's handy.
It's a wonderful place. It's just so, I can't recommend it enough.
I agree.
Special
Yeah.
people there, very special people.
Yeah, they have to be special to
Yeah.
work there.
Yeah.
The first time I ever had a friend who was in hospice and passed on there, I couldn't believe as they took him out, the staff lined up beside each side of his thing, and while the people took him out. I thought, wow,
Yeah.
like that's just phenomenal.
They did a beautiful thing for my husband when he passed. They had a little procession, brought his body out on a bed, and also had draped over it a handmade quilt that someone had donated. and flowers on top. And they took him out to the courtyard and did a beautiful little service for him before he was taken in the hearse. And that was just extra
That's
because they got to know him a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
just amazing.
That's beautiful.
Take special people to deal with
Gloria,
that.
you really
Oh, yes.
did a yeoman service tonight.
Oh,
Yes.
good. That's good to hear. I was a little nervous because I didn't want to break down and cry. And so I was maybe rushing through a little bit more than I should have, but I hope I left you with lots of information.
Oh
Oh,
my,
very-
We certainly
you
do.
have no idea.
Encourage.
Thank
Well
you.
I
done.
left that.
Well done, Gloria. That's
Awesome.
that's
Fabulous,
Thank you.
really
Thank
good.
you.
It's a very
Gloria, I
difficult
think-
subject. Yeah.
It is very difficult. Yeah.
And I think, Barb and I both may have learned something because things change. I mean, it's been 12 years for me
Yep.
and things changed and I'm remarried and yeah, there are things, I wrote notes
Good, good.
and I've been through this once.
Yeah. I got all kinds of
Well,
notes.
things change all the time, like you
Okay.
say. Current things are,
Yeah.
government's changing things, investment people are changing things. There's just really lots of changes. You got to keep up with it. That's where the experts come in, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, the being prepared in advance and having a prepaid funeral. My husband's mother passed, and both her and her husband had prepaid funerals. Everything was perfect. So it was the 26th of August. And then on the 18th of September, 3 weeks later, the oldest boy in the family died totally unexpectedly. He was 64. And there was nothing prepared in advance.
Of course.
And the difference was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn came to the celebration of life for my husband. So the comments that I got was everything went so smoothly. And I think she could probably attest to that too as well.
Yes, it was just beautiful. It was well done, the music right away. And I think, and I remember you saying, Bill said, nobody will come. Like there
Yeah,
won't be
he said,
there."
"No, don't get many, don't put
And this
down
was
many
during-
people. No one.
this was
This
when
was during
COVID
COVID too, yeah.
Yes, during COVID, but they actually I mean, the place was pretty much full.
I had to cut it off. I was restricted by numbers and he thought, oh no, nobody's gonna come. So
Yeah. So it was very nice. It was very nice.
People don't realize the impact they have on others.
no,
Yes.
Obviously, he didn't realize his impact.
no.
No, Vic has said the same thing. He's like he just wants me to take his ashes to his parents' place, where they are buried, and dig a hole and put them in there, and that's it. Like he doesn't want anything after. But that's where those people don't realize that the after is for us,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
right? It's
Yeah.
us. We need that. We need
You
something.
need that. You need that for
Need that
family. You
closure.
need that, yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, even like my husband says, cremate. He says, cremate me and then spread me over the back field at the house. And but I'm thinking, then how do you know that he existed after a few generations,
Well,
Mhm.
But
I agree with him, Nancy. I agree with him. My goal is cremation and sprinkle me on a windy day and you can say I was gone with the wind.
Mhm.
One
that
of my
makes-
favorite movies.
That makes me think of something I just did.
Mhm.
My husband wanted to be put in Ziploc bag. He said, no baggage, no nothing. He just wanted a Ziploc bag.
Yep,
Well, they don't do that, but he was put in a box.
right.
But I offered some of his ashes to his children, and one of them took some. But there's still a lot I've never experienced ashes, but there's still a lot that you get. And so I asked my angels to help me with that, and they suggested that I separate all his ashes into smaller Ziploc bags, which was his wish, and then sprinkle them on his happy spots all around and take my time to do that. So he's now at the golf course, now at the car wash, which was his favorite. now at the park that we go through all the time to go get the mail. So over the years, I'm spreading his ashes. And so
Oh,
I'll remember those spots.
Yes.
Another
Yeah.
thing I remember is, this is a thing to think about. You don't have to buy an expensive box at the funeral.
No.
You could put them in a bag.
And that's why when you pre-arrange it and prepay, you get their wishes. And then
Yes.
you're not feeling, oh, I have to respect them more and buy something more expensive.
Yeah.
Then you
And
don't have that decision to make.
You're right, Gloria. And when you go with other family members,
Yeah, that's
like
right.
they're not looking at the bottom line or anything else.
Yeah.
And when you stop and think about it, these beautiful coffins that are $20,000, they're covered with
Amazing.
flowers. Nobody sees the coffin.
No.
That's right.
Actually,
Nope.
for one of the funerals I had to deal with, we rented the coffin.
I
Oh.
did not know about that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Really?
I didn't know that. Well, my older
I don't know
son,
if you can do it everywhere, but where
I
we
never
went,
heard of it. My oldest son, his ex mother-in-law, she had pancreatic cancer and she wanted to be buried in her favorite cookie jar.
Cool.
That's
Good
what they
for
did.
her.
They buried her favorite
Well, see,
cookie
those
jar.
are the things you can request when you prepay
Yeah.
and prearrange. Yeah.
Yeah. She was a chocoholic, so she arranged ahead of time Crivaliers. Have you heard of them in Niagara
Yeah.
Falls? She had it all paid so that everybody that came for her celebration of life, they all had Crivalier chocolates and
And you can pick out the music you want to
Yep.
play, and you can pick out so many things and have it recorded.
Well, I told my family I want Spirits in the Sky for mine.
Ah, that's a good song.
Yeah, and it's a little. My very first celebration of life was a bit of a shock to me but it was for someone that worked for my husband many years ago, and it was at a church, and we went in, and his family all played instruments, so they were playing the violin and the trumpet and all these different musical, and they sang, and they called it a celebration of life, which it's the first I had ever heard of it, and it was really amazing. It wasn't the old tearjerker where everyone's sitting there, sobbing, which of course is perfectly natural, but they took a whole different perspective. They celebrated his life, and I thought, what an amazing concept. I like that. So I want my death to have a celebration of life, because I like to think that I've done something that's worth celebrating.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
One of my friends had her mother's celebration life on her birthday. It was kind of a nice, rather than right away.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Yes.
When my mom passed away, she wanted to be cremated so she could be buried with my dad, and she died in the winter. Well, it was spring, but it was still really winter and a lot of rain and everything, and we had to wait until June before we could bury her remains. And she says, just pick a time when everybody can get together. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. Sit me on your mantelpiece for a while. I don't mind. So we just picked a date when the weather was finally dry enough where we could actually walk in the cemetery and not sink down to our ankles in the mud. And that worked out well. Now, we have a neighbor down the road and up the next road, and her husband, he passed away in a diving accident. He was taking his exam for his scuba diving, and he panicked, and his lungs exploded. Anyway, what she did, they had a beautiful, beautiful mansion over there, and they had a pond in the front, and he was a veterinarian, and she had his ashes and she sprinkled them on the pond because he
I
loved
didn't
that.
know where you were going with that.
Yeah, she sprinkled them on the
wonderful.
pond, and I thought, well, I'll be darned if I'm going swimming over there. But she's since sold that house, and every time I go by that house, I think of him in that pond with these new people and think, God, I hope they don't let their kids swim in that pond.
Oh,
How
But the thing about a pond, Nancy, my understanding is that there is a little bit of water from the pond that always flows out of the pond and
Yeah.
goes
He's
on.
not the
So
pond, he's in the ocean.
yeah, he's in the
Yeah.
ocean.
He's in the
Well, think
ocean.
about the ocean and
Yeah.
you swim there, so.
I don't know about you, Gloria, but like my upbringing, like we weren't taught about grief at all. Like like very stoic. Like my father's mother passed away when he was young, and you know I wanted to ask about it like all through when I was younger, right? And like it's just nope, dead. Like it was just so passed over. So it was very generational, but like I've done so much work in studying grief, and I just
Yeah.
didn't want it to hurt forever, right? Like you don't want
Yeah.
it to
That's right.
hurt our relationships, hurt moving on.
It
And I
does.
just,
There's no handbook for grief, and
No.
everyone's different. Just like there's no handbook for raising children, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get lucky and they listen to you, and other times no. So, but there's no deadline neither how long you're in grief. So
That's right.
everyone's so different.
Yeah.
That's why you have to
tell you,
reach out.
I have to tell you well, it's a funny story. It actually came up in conversation on Sunday when we had a family dinner and about cremation, and my younger son's girlfriend's grandmother died, or grandfather died, and he was cremated and he was put in a box and he wanted to be sprinkled over the lake. Well, the whole family, they all went walking down to the shore, and she was in a wheelchair, so they had a hard time because they had those big concrete barriers along there. So they had to try and move the barriers and try and get her wheelchair down to the lake edge. Anyway, it was a very, very, very windy day, and someone was talking about, doing a little story about their grandfather, and the grandmother was holding the box of ashes, and all of a sudden she just opened the lid and went phew, like that with the ashes, and it all went in everybody's face.
Oh, dear God.
Oh,
Everybody was covered
That's
with
the
this
wind.
man's ashes.
You gotta
Yeah.
test the wind.
Oh my God.
or
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't believe it. Everyone was just horrified. They had inhaled part of the grandfather. But there's always a place for humor too, right?
Yes.
Oh,
I do
absolutely.
believe that. I think that's very important. And that as sad as it is, there's still a funny story that you can still laugh and remember. And
Thank you.
because I think if you can't laugh, you might as well give up. You've got to remember the good stuff too.
Thank you so much. Wow. Gloria, this has been absolutely amazing. If there are no more questions,
Well, thank you for listening. I'm happy to share, and I wish you well with getting all your ducks in a row.
Thank you so much, Gloria.
thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Gloria.
I will stop the recording now and the meeting will go on. Thank you.